You're the king of these people. You're the Lord of this nation.
Welcome to the Somebody Cares Show. Before I introduce my guest, just have a couple of things that Somebody Cares New England is working on. We'll let the community know about it in an ample amount of time to make some decisions on your calendar in the upcoming year. We have an opportunity, it's an awesome opportunity with a national organization. It's called Uncharted Waters, UW Sports Camp. And you can check them out on their website, uwsportscamp.org. And this sports VBS kind of camp is going to offer tag football, soccer, basketball, and cheerleading. And it's going to be a week long up on Mount Washington area for young kids. And they're going to be able to come to sports camp, have lunch, and have a ball. And it's for free. We're so excited. The organization that's going to be coming is going to be sponsoring it. They have a real heart for inner city kids and to offer them some opportunities that they may not, on another note, be able to have. So we're looking forward to that. The date is July 14 through 18. More information will be out about it. And you can also check our website at the end of the show for somebodycaresne.org. Also, August 13th through 16th, we're going to be hosting our 7th or 8th, 9th, 10th annual Bless the City event. And what we do during that event is from Wednesday night through Saturday is we actually host and facilitate youth groups and churches from all across the Merrimack Valley. We actually have a group of young people coming from Texas, a group of young people coming from Georgia. They're going to be joining us. It's going to be an awesome time. And what we do is we teach Christians to be missionaries to their own city. We have a responsibility, a biblical responsibility to love our city to wholeness. And so finding out about your city's destiny, your city's industry, your city's call that God has on that city. Every city has a divine call. And so we teach Christians how to find out what that call is for their city, to pray into that call, and to be a part of answering the call that their city can be all that God's called it to be. That's going to be August 13th through 16th. We look forward to that. So check our website for some information. But I know that people are planning their summer once school gets out and want to make sure that you have ample time to be able to plan. We welcome you to come. Check it out on our website. Thanks. I am excited today. I have two very dear friends on the show today that are guests of Somebody Cares. And when I say friends, I'm not talking about like we go have coffee together, but we're friends of the spirit, friends of the heart, and we have the same heart for our city, the same heart for God. I should have said it in this order. The same heart for God, the same heart for our city, and the same heart for the people that God has given us to direct and to shepherd and to love. And so it is a joy to have Ron Mills, the director of Common Ground Ministries, and Pastor Rick Amendola from New Life Christian Assembly up on Main Street. And they are a part of making what you may see downtown on the corner of White and Winter Street, where Common Ground Ministries is located. I think at this point you have 4 storefronts.
We do.
We do. We do. And it's a joy to have Pastor Rick on the show and Ron, because we go back, Ron and I go back over 30 years.
Yes, we do.
Maybe close to 40.
It's pretty long.
It's pretty long. We won't be talking about how long. And when we moved up the hill to Mount Washington, one of the things that I had dialogue with God about is I said, Lord, I love this corner. I love these people. I've given 12 years of my life to this corner, meaning the corner of White and Winter. And I said, God, I don't mind going to Mount Washington, but what are you going to do for the people? And so I knew that Ron had a heart for missions. I knew that Common Ground was doing a great work. He's going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But I called Ron and asked if he would bring to his board the thought of maybe taking on the mission as we went up the hill to Mount Washington. Mm-hmm. And many of you in this city know the work that Common Ground has done on the corner of White and Winter, and it's absolutely amazing. And I remember when you first said yes, and you came back and the board said unanimous, mm-hmm. We're going to take it on. Mm-hmm. And I remember just your concern about, are we going to even be able to do what you did?
Yes.
And I said, Ron, not only are you going to do what I did, mm-hmm. we did, you're going to take it further than when we did. Yeah. Because when there's a foundation laid, you can start building. Mm-hmm. And I love it when you go by a development and they're pouring a foundation for a house. Seems to take forever to move all the rocks and the trees and, excavate it and all the stuff you got to do to lay that foundation. But once that foundation's laid, what happens in the next 2 weeks?
Right.
Goes up pretty fast.
Yes.
So I commend you. I thank God for you. I'm grateful. My heart is blessed because of what you do.
Why, thank you.
And I know that you can't do it without comrades
Yes.
in the battlefield with you. And Pastor Rick, from the first time you moved to this city, You gave me the right hand of fellowship. You sought us out. You've prayed with us. We've prayed with you. And it's a friendship in the spirit for the kingdom purpose.
Yes, it
And
is.
I just thank God for you, that you came to Haverhill, that you answered the call. So I want to give the rest of the show to talking about what Common Ground and New Life Christian Assembly together is offering, not just the corner, but even what New Life is doing.
Sure.
But the reason that we met today is because of the National Day of Prayer. So we'll
Yes.
start that, and then we'll go off onto whatever you want to share.
Okay, all right. So we can talk about the, well, you want me to talk about Common Ground first a little
Well,
bit?
let's do the
Okay.
National Day of Prayer, because I'm not sure how much time that we'll
Okay,
take on that,
gotcha,
and then the
gotcha.
leftover time
Yep.
we'll talk about the ministry.
The National Day of Prayer, actually, Pastor Rick and myself are co-chairs.
Yes.
And we're very fortunate. We have altogether at this point about 14 churches that are aware of the event that's coming up.
Yep.
And it's going to be May the 1st. And it's going to be the 63rd National Day of Prayer. And it's going to be held at City Hall at first. We're going to be outside around the flagpole. And then we're going to go over to the Citizen Center.
So the segment that you're praying around the flagpole is a specific segment that you're going to City Hall for. That
Right.
segment is,
That's going to be, we have Pastor Frank Jewett from the Advent Christian Church will be presiding over that. And he'll tell us a little bit about some of the history of the city in terms of its forefathers and how the churches way back then were praying for the city and what we continue to do. And we'll have a circle around the flagpole, and we will be praying for federal and national governments at that particular location.
that's awesome.
And then we'll be going over to the Citizen Center. We'll be inside this year. We've always have been in the park in the prior years, but we seem to always have too much wind or it's too cold or whatever the case may be. So we're going to be in the Citizen Center.
And we're getting older.
We are getting older, that's right. So the Citizen Center will set up a nice area for us to meet inside. We will be broadcasting it out onto the park. So we've met with the sound team, and they're going to put speakers out facing into the park. And so folks can listen from outside if they would choose to do that. We
But
hope
it's an
they'll come in
open
and
meeting,
join
too.
us.
Anybody going by
Anybody in.
can come in.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
open to the public, very much so. So when we come into the Senior Center, we have Bill Pillsbury is going to be our first one to present a focus on local government. And Jeff Masters, Pastor Jeff Masters, will be our MC. So he introduced him. We do have a band. It's the DRM band that will have appropriate music
What
for
does
the event.
DRM stand for?
Doesn't really matter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is?
Well, they're four couples, and these four couples
I
have
love
been lifetime friends, and their whole concept is about sharing their faith, actually, through their music, and they are just an awesome group of people. And so when they came up to the decision to name the band, they said it doesn't really matter what the band's
Isn't that
name
great?
is. It matters about what it is that we would sing.
That's
So
good.
they're extremely talented. So
That's great. Yeah, I've heard
they
that
will
they're
lead
very
us.
good. Yeah.
Yes. They've really super people. Then local government, Bill Pillsbury will address that, and we actually have 7 prayer focuses that the National Day of Prayer organizers in Washington set forth as a guideline for us, and we've honored that for the last more than a decade. So here locally, after local government, then we have military. And this year, Pastor Rick and myself and the other pastors talked about not only having pastors involved, but also local people.
That's awesome. Yep.
So with the military, we have a Sergeant Major retired Dave Tuttle, who is going to preside over that prayer focus. And then we have an active Major, Jim Marks, who is going to be also there to share about the prayer focus for our military.
That's awesome.
Then media. We have Pastor Mike Chambers from the Nazarene Church will be holding media up in prayer. Business, we have David Spalding, who is going to, he's the president of United States, USA.net. He's a local businessman and he's also the worship leader at the Baptist Church. And then education, we have a student, Sandy, is coming in from North Point,
Yep.
and then we have a teacher from the Lawrence Public School, Michael Whitehead. So we have two people who are going to hold our education up in prayer. And then Pastor Danny O'Valley is going to pray for our churches.
And he's from where?
He is from the First Church of Christ over in Bradford.
Yep.
And then for family, we're going to be holding prayer up for family, and that would be Pastor Bill Unger, and he's from Pastor Rick's church, New Life. And then we'll close with a opportunity to have some good music by the DRM band, and then Pastor Rick will close the event. So it's from 4:30 to 7 on May the 1st.
And if people can't come at the very beginning of the prayer set, they can jump in at
Absolutely.
any time. Because a lot of people don't get out of work at 4:30.
Yes.
Yep.
Over the years, we've experimented with different times, and you're exactly right. This is open to anybody in the community, and they can arrive and hear any one of these segments. So there's enough time to come and be part of it, and coming and leaving when you would need to is certainly this kind of event where you're able to do that.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you for chairing it, both of you, because neither one of you have a lot of extra free time to be doing this. Being that you're a businessman running
Yes.
your business,
Yes.
running the ministry, and
Yes.
Pastor Rick, running a lively church, a
Yes,
very,
yes.
busy schedule. So thank you so much for
Right.
coordinating that and doing all that work.
That's our pleasure.
And it's encouraging to see all of the different denominations and all the
Yes.
different venues of, walks of life that are going to be involved in that. And
Yes.
it's a real testimony to what God's doing in the city of Haverhill.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
awesome. So let's talk a little bit then about how New Life and Common Ground are working and what's being accomplished in the corner.
Well, first of all, Marlene, I want to thank you for having us on the program today.
Yes.
Pleasure to have you.
I also want to thank you for the fact that when we moved to Haverhill about 6 years ago, my wife and I, it was actually you and you, Ron, that greeted us with open arms. And that is something so dear to our hearts. We're so thankful for your extending yourselves to us. So I think over the last 5 or 6 years, what has happened is really a result of that.
Right.
We have relationship.
Right.
We all love God. We all love people, and we love each other in the
Right.
sense that we're working for a common cause. And
Right.
that's very special.
It is.
I don't want to say anything before I say that. This is very special.
Right.
And I think the outgrowth of Common Ground and some of the things that are happening are a result of that.
Yes.
But there was a situation, well, when you were getting ready to move up to Washington Street, we also were wondering what was going to happen to that area of town, White Street and Winter Street. And all these different factors seem to have come together at the same time. But I have to again commend you because your labors there for many years are now bringing forth fruit. And no one could ever say anything without saying that. We thank you for your many labors for many,
joy.
many years in the downtown
Thank
area
you.
of Haverhill. And so I think Ron came along and I came along and we kind of picked up where you had left off. But our church, New Life Christian Assembly, has a focus on missions. We emphasize foreign missions. We send many missionaries overseas. But we also focus on the local missions aspect of what's needed.
Right.
And so we were able to work with Ron, and our main concern actually was what was going to happen on Sundays. I mean, we were concerned about the food and the clothing,
Sure.
but we were really concerned about the spiritual aspect. So the first thing that we offered to do was to get involved with Sunday morning. So we sent a few workers down every Sunday morning, and they're still there 2 years later, conducting services. It's actually a coffee house situation, and but people come. They have breakfast, they have some fellowship, and they study the Word of God. So that was our first involvement, but it really has grown a lot since then. Now, what about the Saturday morning breakfast and this Sunday morning breakfast? I forget how that even started.
Well, Actually, through Somebody Cares Mentoring and your wonderful staff, they helped us to understand the importance of the need for breakfast on Saturday mornings. So we just continued what you were doing. So every Saturday morning, we feed now approximately 100 folks that are homeless, and we provide bag lunches for them as well on Saturday.
And excuse me, Ron, but
Yep.
that also, a comment needs to be made on that because all the workers are volunteers.
Right.
Yes, oh, yes, they are.
And like for me, who thinks about food a lot, where does all this food come from? Really, it's a lot of food to give
It
out,
is.
Yeah.
and
It
it's
is.
all free.
Yes.
But people prepare it and serve it. But where does the food even come from?
Well, the food, we are fortunately supported by the Boston Food Bank. And at this point in time, just at the cafe alone, we're feeding roughly over 1,000 people a month at one occasion or another. And as Pastor Rick had said, we now have 10 leaders in the 4 different outreaches and over 100 volunteers from roughly 14 churches.
That is fantastic.
It is. It's
And
amazing.
that's the story, and I'm glad you mentioned
Yeah.
it, because that's the story that we so much are dedicated to maintain that, because by not paying anybody, people are there because they want to be there, and they want to make a difference, not only in other people's lives, but it reflects back on them.
You know, excuse me, Ron. I think this is one of Haverhill's best kept secrets.
Yeah,
I don't know
yes.
that the community knows.
Well,
There's
that's the
several-
reason inviting you on the
Yeah,
show,
I mean,
every venue
yes.
that we can to make it known.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is
We need
this
to
is
take
great. I
it-
mean, several churches, several pastors,
Yes.
different people from different churches getting together to work together.
Yes.
You know, you don't see that often,
Right.
you know, throughout the country, but it is happening here. So
Yes.
I think it's really great.
Yeah, and we just are, all of us at any of the levels within the outreaches are just so blessed to be there. And when we have meetings, they're not like normal meetings. They're stories about how we helped in the community. And so it's an exciting place to be.
And many people's lives have been changed because somebody stops to really listen to their story.
Yes.
And to connect them to some, rehab places. I mean, some of the guys that are some of the toughest guys to reach on the city streets are,
Yes.
the testimony of one in particular is,
Let me interject here. You know, we started out by talking about National Day of Prayer.
Yes.
And one of the scriptures that we really focus on is 2 Chronicles 7:14. That if my people who are called by my name will repent and humble themselves and seek God and pray, you know, the Lord will respond and answer those prayers and heal the land. And those different areas for the National Day of Prayer, those like government, military, media, business, education, church, and family, those topics are very crucial. But what I'm saying is, over the course of several years, God is actually beginning to answer those prayers.
yes, he is.
See, what we're talking about it didn't just happen.
Right.
It's been prayed
Right.
over
Right.
for years. And now we're seeing some fruit of all those prayers. So going back to the National Day of Prayer, we believe in prayer, absolutely. And so when things are happening, like we see families getting restored, we see people getting help, we see people coming out of a life of drugs or whatever and getting restored, this is because people have been praying, and not only praying, but then actually lending a hand and giving.
Yeah.
So you have twofold. You have the spiritual and you have the practical.
Right.
And so I think that's really what's happening down there.
Yes.
Yep.
And so anyway, so the Saturday morning breakfast then was going so great. Then, I don't know, a few months ago,
Yep.
we're doing it on Sunday morning
We are.
as well.
We are.
Before the fellowship time.
Yes.
So that's, which says there's a great need in Haverhill,
There is.
but there's a rising up to meet the need. And so
Yeah.
that's very commendable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We also are there, we're there 365 days of the year.
Right.
And we open our doors for the opportunity of folks to get off the street and find a place to come, and it's a safe haven for them. And many times we're serving lunch and things of that nature. So,
And also help, go ahead, Pastor.
Now, we didn't touch on the thrift store.
It's just
no,
where
we
it's going.
didn't, no.
Because you had told me a week or so ago, I mean, the thrift store is packed with items.
Yes, it is.
And every time I go there, there's people there. But you were talking about the income
Yes.
that is helping to support the
That-
rental fees and
yes,
so forth
that's
to
right.
even be there. So
Yes.
that's something to comment on, I think.
Well, it is. And we started with one of our, we call them champions, one of the leaders that's involved who happens to be a member of Pastor Rick's church. Millie's her name. And she had a vision to do a clothing outreach. So this is what started. So we started with the clothing outreach. And that little hallway, the city of Haverhill has been very generous to us in terms of giving us an occupancy permit, even for a hallway. So they give us an occupancy permit for a hallway, and Millie opens up a clothing outreach to help those in need at no cost. And that little hallway, we call it the bowling alley, now has provided clothing for over 500 individuals in the greater Haverhill area. In addition to that, that ministry of clothing has also benefited Kenya and Africa. We've sent over 600 bags of clothing, large trash bags of clothing to Africa. In addition to that, we have sent clothing to Haiti, and we're now in the process of having a link to send some clothing to Israel. So the thrift store we have a big overhead. We don't pay anybody, but last year it was a $94,000 expenditure to be there. And with God's assistance, we raised $94,000.
Isn't that
That's
pretty
fantastic.
miraculous?
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and when you start the whole process, you go, where's the money going to come from?
Yes, you do.
A few years ago, there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was like there was nothing
Just-
happening. There was
Right.
no
That's
money
right.
to do
Right.
anything.
That's right.
And that's the kingdom. It's different. See, in the business world of the natural, if you
Yes.
don't have the money,
Right.
you ain't going nowhere.
Right.
In the kingdom of God, when you just say yes, that's when it begins to
Yeah,
happen.
there's something-
After
Yes.
you say yes.
Yes.
Something about faith. And
Yes,
you have to
yes.
step out in faith
Absolutely.
and trust God. Do your work, but
Yeah.
trust God at the same time.
Yeah. So we didn't even talk about the food pantry, which you did. And currently, we've grown from a few thousand pounds of food a month to now we're providing food for over 500 individuals once a month, and that exceeds 20,000 pounds of food. So that's another of the outreaches in that block. But to answer your question, the thrift store actually helps to support our rent and our utilities. And then through generous donors and through various fundraisers helps to provide for the cost of the food
Right.
and other operating expenses we have for paper plates and all that sort of thing. So it's an amazing testimony of how a group of people can come together with a vision. And the three of us, we sat in that space and just said, here we are, use us. And because of your mentoring, God's really blessed that. And now we are able to do more than we ever believed we possibly could.
I remember when we needed a van to be able to pick up our food from the Merrimack Valley Food
Yes.
Bank in Lowell, and talking with our team. And, I thank God for people that are numbers people. I
sure.
don't fault them for
Yeah.
that. They got to see the numbers.
Right.
But in the kingdom, the numbers don't always.
A little different.
Yeah, the numbers don't necessarily open the doors for you. Faith
Yes.
opens the doors for you, and then the
Yes.
numbers come, and that drives some people wacky.
Yes.
But I can remember one particular meeting and saying we needed a van, and they said, listen, vans are going for like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. There's no way, you don't have a budget for it. And then we got a call from an organization that was in the city that was shifting gears, and they needed to unload some vans.
Yep, there
And
you
because of a conversation with
That's
a
right.
mutual friend, we ended up getting a van that was book value $14,000
That's right.
for $3,000.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
how does
I
that
remember
happen?
that.
Well,
Sure.
capital G-O-D.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
He
right.
makes
right.
a way where there seems to be no way.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the piece about the ministry that a lot of people don't understand. It's that
Yeah.
faith place. I love living on the edge. Not because I'm a daredevil by nature, but because I love living in a place where you can't make things happen and you get to see God make it happen.
Sure,
That's a beautiful
sure.
thing.
The whole thing with the finances is we need to be extremely transparent too.
Right.
So we have a very qualified a treasurer. And we do everything with the latest version of QuickBooks for nonprofit because we are a 501c3. and then we are under the we have a CPA. So we have somebody with the proper advice to give us to make sure we don't miss a report or we don't do something that we're supposed to do.
Sure.
So that's real important to us. So our treasurer, anybody who ever questions about our revenues or our expenses, he does an awesome job of providing not only our board, but our steering committee and anybody who wanted to look at our financials to see it.
You got to be on top of things. Things
Oh,
change
yes.
from year to year as well. I remember we
Absolutely.
were going to visit our lawyer on some issues, and they were at 1 Beacon Street in Boston, you know, getting in and out of Boston and all that,
Yes.
and just getting all your papers together and everything. And so the lady that was doing my books, very brilliant woman, she had just by chance jumped on the website to see if any filings, things had
Yes.
changed, whatever. So she found that it had just changed that month. So she was able to bring in and say to the lawyer, I'm sorry, but this is the new papers.
Yeah.
So everybody looking out, there's got to be a net. There's got to be everybody
right.
looking with eyes to be able to look out for the
Right,
ministry.
absolutely.
You know, because, well, as you said, we have to be transparent.
Yes.
There's a lot of scrutiny over a lot of nonprofits that have misappropriated some generous donors. And,
Yes.
you know, I feel like ministries like Common Ground or Somebody Cares, if we can make our P&L available to anybody that wants to donate freely, here it is, this is what we do,
Absolutely.
this is where it goes, nobody gets paid. You
That's
can
right.
see where your money's going right in to help single parents
Exactly.
and, you know, all of the situations. And that makes a big difference to donors. They want to know that the money that they're giving is not going so you can drive a Lexus.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, just to, when we do have some donors who help us with grants. And what's interesting, the first presentation I had the honor to give to a local organization to help us with a grant, we asked for a certain amount of money, and then I gave them the list of things we were going to do, and they said, you can't do it, it won't work. And I said, well, there's a little difference here. Is the fact that all we got to do is buy the materials, and the tradespeople will come aboard and help us at no cost.
Right.
So the majority of our labor is free. So we're able to do a lot with a little. And that's where we're at with that. Occasionally, because of the building codes, we have to have a building permit pulled by a master electrician
Sure.
or a plumber.
Right.
And we honor all of that. We work closely
Absolutely,
with the
because
city.
they're looking out for making sure that people are safe and
That's right,
absolutely.
that's
Yep.
right. The city right now is putting in a brand-new handicap bathroom.
Wonderful.
And, you know, what a blessing that's going to be. So
Absolutely.
here we've been running a little coffee house without a place to change a diaper. And now all that's going to change. So by the 1st of May, we'll have a brand-new handicap bathroom, which we
awesome.
so desperately needed.
That's
yeah.
awesome. As we're getting ready to wind up the show, just a couple of things to let the viewing audience know is that you do what's called Hillstock
Yes.
every year at GAR Park
Right.
downtown. And just
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah, Hillstock is actually, it's a 4-day event. The Wednesday night will be at the church, but that Friday and Saturday will be at GAR Park.
Yeah.
This year, we're looking at the last weekend of June, actually, a little earlier this year. But it'll be the Friday night, I forget the date, the last Friday of June. Music, Christian music, different bands and soloists. And then Saturday is the big day with a lot of music, a lot of Christian entertainment, if you will. And also free food, hot dogs and snow cones and popcorn and pony rides and whatever else we could put together
Right.
between now and then.
Right.
But it's an outreach to spread the word that God loves people. And everything there is free. Our motto is the grace of God is free, so everything for you is free. We want to bless people. And hopefully we'll make connections with people. Over the years, we've made many good connections. We invite them to the church or other churches that are nearby. And we just want to do something good for the city of Haverhill.
That's awesome. So that'll be in June.
So we'll be looking for more info.
Yep.
Yeah, locally we'll
Yeah, and
promote
then we
it.
do August, and then Common Ground does September.
September,
annually.
Yes.
Yep.
our Serving Haverhill event
Cer-
with a truckload.
Yep.
Serving
And you know,
Haverhill.
we've had many moms come to us and say that if it wasn't for the things that happen in the park, and not just us, I mean, there's other churches
Sure.
as well. You know, the city does a ton of stuff for
Yep.
the kids, you know, so that makes the summertime in the city of Haverhill for the city kids something to look forward to and
Yes.
something to, you know,
Yes.
really, you know,
There's
have
nothing
fun at.
better. One of the things I love about Hillstock, at some point we gather all the kids that are there. And there's a lot of kids there. There could be 100 kids there or more. but they all come running up to the front, and some of them have their faces painted. And just to see all the kids having a good time.